Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Israel Katz, Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, has stated that he will not apologise for repeating the words of former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir that Poles suckle anti-Semitism with their mother's milk. In an interview with Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz, the Polish Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, described such statements as nothing short of racism.
I have no problem with someone mentioning the fact that during the cruel, evil, dehumanizing war, there were individual criminals in my nation. Obviously there were, just as in every other nation. But when you use the stereotypes that every Pole suckled anti-Semitism out of their mother's breast, it's nothing short of racism. The Polish government still awaits an apology for the words of the Israeli foreign minister. However, according to the members of the Kukiz 15 movement, an apology would not suffice. Minister Katz, much like Mrs. Mitchell, should be added to a list of people undesirable in the Republic of Poland. The Civic Platform Party politician Marcin Kierwiński blames this entire issue on the government not reacting to the words spoken by Benjamin Netanyahu during the Middle Eastern summit. During his visit to Warsaw, the Israeli Prime Minister claimed that Poles collaborated with the Germans during the Holocaust. I do not want to assess the attempts of the Polish diplomacy. I would like to assess their effectiveness. There is a specific aim to reach, which is to obtain an apology from Israel. According to the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jacek Czaputowicz, the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, presumed to express his sympathy with the Polish stance on the negative statements coming from the Israeli authorities. Earlier this week, the US ambassador to Poland, Georgette Mosbacher, stated that Minister Katz should apologize for his words. Nevertheless, there are no indications that Poland will receive any apologies from Israeli politicians.
Yesterday, following an intensive debate, the Polish Sejm adopted the act commemorating the former Prime Minister of Poland, Jan Olszewski. 266 MPs voted for and only one voted against. 23 MPs from the Modern Party, the Polish People's Party and the Union of European Democrats abstained. The Civic Platform Party and the Civic Coalition did not take part in the voting.
The Polish Sejm adopted the act commemorating the former Prime Minister of Poland, Jan Olszewski. The act says that Jan Olszewski was an honorable man, full of dignity, modesty and honesty. He was a patriot, statesman and a role model. Unfortunately, a political scramble took place. Opposition politicians disagreed with the content of the act.
The words that Jan Olszewski was the first anti-communist prime minister are untrue. We had the first free elections in 1991. But it isn't right to say things like that, because they are untrue. This wasn't the breakthrough government in 1991, and we have to remember that it didn't win with a majority, but with a minority of votes. It was set up for failure in the first place. We know well that the opposition has a different opinion, but they should act differently in this case because this matter concerns building up the national community. It is very sad, disgraceful. There was a fragment about the former Prime Minister's activity. It was about the vetting. This activity was conducted very badly. It moved away a normal, civilized process of vetting for a couple of years. I remembered the night shift yesterday. I went back in my mind to June 1992. Jan Olszewski's whole path was beautiful. Unfortunately, the opposition doesn't see it. This is sad, but I'm happy with the final result. We adopted a very important document. We paid tribute to the former Prime Minister, Jan Olszewski. He deserved it.
Jan Olszewski died on February 7th at the age of 88. The two-day-long funeral ceremony had a national character with former presidents, prime ministers and leaders of the opposition, with the exception of Paweł Kukiz, leader of the Kukiz 15 movement, didn't take part.
Opposition of all shades unite. This is a slogan that is motivating and uniting opposition parties in Poland in advance of the elections to the European Parliament in May. On Saturday, the decision whether to join the so-called European coalition will be made by the Polish People's Party, or PSL. In the view of commentators, if the PSL joins this coalition assembled by Grzegorz Schetyna, the party risks losing its identity with its core electorate.
The Modern Party made the decision today. Starting here and now, every European coalition candidate will be our common candidate. The PSL party is divided and will make up its mind tomorrow.
But since our party will go to the 4 elections under one single election committee, PSL, why would we want to lose our identity during the upcoming spring elections? In a wide coalition, no one loses, same as Gowin and Ziobro did not lose in the coalition with Law and Justice, despite the fact they were much weaker partners than the PSL is for the civic platform.
By integrating into a wild coalition, PSL risks losing its identity.
I think that PSL will come to their senses, so, hypothetically speaking, if they get above the threshold of 5%, say 6, 6.5, 7, they might get about 4 or 5 seats in the European Parliament. In the coalition which is being created now, they will not have a chance for that many seats. They can gain something in the short run, but they will lose their specific identity, something that's been proven with other parties that already joined.
Also seeks integration not only within the European coalition. He wants to apologize to the Modern Party and wrote a letter to them.
It's time to join forces and begin a close cooperation between our groups, both in the parliament and outside. To make this possible, I suggest creating a joint parliamentary club and teams that will coordinate joint program work and the activities of candidates in the upcoming election campaigns.
I have to say yes, the Modern Party is always open to everyone who wants to join. The European coalition was created in February 2019 by the initiative of Grzegorz Schetyna, leader of the main opposition party in Poland's civic platform. The signatories are former prime ministers and members of the previous governments.
This smacks of the Round Table, the former communists united with part of the old anti-communist opposition, which was licensed by them.
Parties as of now include the Civic Platform, Democratic Left Alliance, Green Party, Polish Initiative and Modern Party.
The film Cold War, which has been nominated for a number of Oscars this year, including Best Director and Best Foreign Language Film, owes much of its visual beauty to the real-life folk ensemble Mazowsze. The ensemble was founded in 1948 and is still active today. The film's tempestuous romance moves from the countryside of post-war Poland to the jazz clubs of Paris, against a backdrop of performances by the ensemble.
The movie Cold War, which has already earned Paweł Pawlikowski the Best Director Award at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival, tells the story of a love affair between Zula, a tough, beautiful woman who wins a much-coveted place in the Mazurek troupe, and Wiktor, its dashing musical director. Mazowsze, the real-life prototype of the movie's Mazurek, was founded by a Polish composer Tadeusz Stygietyński and his wife Mira Zimińska, who traveled around post-war Poland collecting folk songs and traditional dances. During the communist times, Mazowsze became a flagship of Polish culture. After performing in Moscow in front of the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, the ensemble toured all the Warsaw Pact capitals, including East Berlin, from where the movie's protagonist Wiktor defects to the west. In Otrębusy, a village near Warsaw when Mazowsze had its base, the director found both the inspiration and the cast. The ensemble's dancers became actors in his movie, while Two Hearts, the song played in various renditions throughout the film, is the standard classic of Mazowsze's repertoire.
The film is set in the 50s, and so is the Mazurek ensemble. The performing style of the dances then was very different from what it is now. The director often asked us to dance in a more amateurish way. We struggled. It was very difficult for us to do.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business and more besides. But from me, it's have a good evening and a better tomorrow.
Good evening, welcome to Poland Daily Weather. I'm Paulina Otterstein. Tonight's temperatures will be from -5 degrees around Białystok and Olsztyn and up to 6 degrees in the area of Zielona Góra with some rain as well. Snow is expected in the area of Wrocław, also in Poznań, Łódź and Rzeszów. Clear skies in the northern parts of the country. And now let's check the forecast for tomorrow. So tomorrow during the day, nice and sunny in most parts of our country. It will remain dry and -2 degrees in the area of Rzeszów, also in Lublin, -1 degree in Warsaw, also 1 degree in Łódź, and up to 4 degrees in the west, like Zielona Góra, also going up in Szczecin. Now let's check the forecast for the upcoming days. So on Sunday we will see 7 degrees, and it will be the maximum in the western parts of the country, 2 degrees in the rest of the country. On Monday 6 degrees in the southwest, 8 degrees will be seen in the northwest, which will be the maximum, 4 degrees central Poland with some rain as well. And on Tuesday up to 11 degrees in the southwest parts of Poland, 7 degrees in central Poland, and quite a bit of sun is expected as well. Thank you, and I'm wishing you a beautiful evening. Goodbye.
Poland Daily Business tonight, and our guest is Paweł Brzezicki of Polish Investment and Trade Agency. Sir, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, when we say about businesses between Poland and the United States, it always or sometimes boils down to the differences in culture. The people say something, other side does not understand, or people don't get the jokes, people don't get the conditional English, and but there is also more fundamental differences. And you are the person who is witnessing of this thing.
There are certainly cultural differences between Poland and the United States. Now, they may be more similar than some people could think, but I think one of the biggest differences I see in cultural attitudes. I think the Polish people are more of what I would call realists, and Americans would call themselves optimists. So there's ups and downs, there's pluses and minuses to both of these kind of cultural attitudes. I think one thing that Polish business culture could really learn from American optimist culture. For example, in the United States, if you had a startup and you had 3 or 4 startups that failed, you're actually viewed really positively in a lot of American business climate culture. If you go to San Francisco to investors and you tell them, I had 6 failed startups, they'll say, that's awesome, great. They'll look at you more positively than the guy who's on his first one, because you learn from your mistakes. And oftentimes in business, it's even more important to know what not to do than it is what to do. And in that sense, I think that a lot of Polish business climate could really learn something from this perspective. On the other hand, this Polish realist attitude. I always say that one of Poland's greatest strengths in business, Poland's greatest strengths is our labor force. We have such a talented labor pool. We have such talented, hardworking workers. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that maybe this realist attitude, Polish workers, Polish startup owners, Polish businessmen, they demand a much higher quality out of themselves. They're more realistic about their opportunities. They have a higher expectations of what will and won't succeed.
Something with the basic education. When you go to the United States, they tell you are the greatest. It's fantastic what you've done. And whilst in Poland, they say, well, it's screwed. I mean, why don't you put your attention to the details?
Absolutely, but out of that, you have a really high quality of work. You have really innovative, really creative, really excellent products, really excellent workers from Poland, and that's a competitive advantage. Oftentimes, what you have, another cultural difference is that the United States and America, they're sales experts. You don't have that as much here in Poland. You know, they really know how to sell themselves, their companies. It's just a cultural trait. Right. Whereas, so you have this dichotomy where in the United States, oftentimes you might have on the market a product or a service that's not really that great, but they sell themselves so well that they're successful.
Creating hype.
Absolutely. Whereas in Poland, you might have a really, really amazing product. I meet tons of companies with excellent ideas that I think would be absolutely, phenomenally successful, but they're not as good at selling themselves. And if you can combine this amazing quality of work, amazing talent and amazing products with an excellent sales ability, then you have a powerhouse that can't be stopped. I tell a lot of my Polish companies, if you want to sell in the United States, make the product in Poland, have the team that design everything, because it'll be the best in the world there, but sell it in the United States. Open something, get Americans to sell your product for you there. It's very competitive, it's very commercialized, and that's a route to success. If you're not willing to open something in the United States, you're not really going to find a lot of business there. But if you can get there and you can be there, and with the quality of products and services that Polish companies offer, there's no stopping them.
Right. All the examples like the Polish gaming industry
Absolutely.
that has the sales, the worldwide sales and worldwide promotion.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the Polish video game industry, and companies obviously like CD Projekt Red, but also less well-known companies like 11-bit studios. They're still well-known, but
Right.
companies like Techland, they're famous in the video game world, especially in the United States, for having amazing quality products, but they've been successful because they're in the United States and they sell it to Americans in an American way. They sell that amazing Polish product.
And if you are in America, if you sell into America, it will also sell to everybody else in the world.
Absolutely. I say that time and time again. You know, it's the largest consumer market on earth, and it also has the greatest global reach. And if you can be successful in the United States, you can be successful around the whole
Just
world.
people in Japan will buy the stuff from you because Americans are buying
Absolutely.
from you.
Everybody
That's the
wants to
key.
buy what's successful in America. And that's why I think Polish companies should definitely be looking in the United States direction. There's so much to gain from doing it, but you have to do it the right way. And that's what we here at PAIH have to offer as well.
Do it right way. That's the whole point of our show. Thank you very much. Paweł Brzezicki, Polish Investment and Trade Agency.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And that was it for tonight's edition of Poland Daily Business.
Good evening and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. I'm Paulina Otterstein. Tomorrow in Poland during the day we will see quite a bit of sun, and the maximum temperature will be 4 degrees Celsius in the area of Zielona Góra, as well as in Szczecin, 3 degrees in Koszalin, Gdańsk and Poznań, -1 degree in Warsaw, 1 degree in Łódź with full sun, and also very sunny in the area of Rzeszów, Krakow and Lublin. And now let's check what will happen tomorrow in Europe. So the warmest will be Lisbon, Portugal with 21 degrees Celsius, also 19 degrees in Madrid with sun and clouds. 3 degrees will be seen in Vienna, Prague, as well as in Bratislava with a lot of sun. -5 degrees will be the minimum tomorrow. And this is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
On today's episode of Poland Daily Culture, we are going to give you an insight into a foreign perspective living in Poland. We will be exploring their experiences and how they have absorbed certain aspects of the culture.
Thinking as we're in a restaurant right now, maybe we could touch on the food a little bit. So give us a little contrast between Polish and Swedish food.
Again, here I would say that it's quite similar in many cases.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that, again, the Swedes, they have given up on it. The typical Swedish food that you would eat is very rarely eaten anymore. There aren't, for example, any restaurants that cook traditional Swedish food. It's all ethnic food or junk food, to be honest. But the typical Swedish cuisine is very much like Polish, with a lot of potatoes, a lot of meat, a lot of different types of gravies, a lot of fat. The climate is quite similar, with long and harsh winters, and people would be working long days just to survive. So they had to have very nutritious food and a lot of calories simply. So yeah, the Swedish cuisine is actually very good, but hardly anyone eats it anymore, especially not in restaurants. You might cook it at home, but you won't take your friends out for dinner and go and get some typical Swedish food. That is rare. In Poland, on the other hand, this is still quite common, and that's something I enjoy, that it's not difficult to find good Polish food in restaurants. It's quite easy and it's quite available. You have the kind of modern cuisine that is could get a Michelin star, that it's very innovative, it's creative, but it's still Polish to its character. And then on the other hand, you have the so-called Polish milk bars, where you can get very good Polish food for $1 or $2. Whatever you want to go for, you can always get some good Polish food.
Nice. And how do you see yourself in Poland now, have you feel like you fully embraced like where you are, and you fully adopted and adapted to the Polish lifestyle and that culture?
I would say I'm getting there, at least. I've been here now for 5 years, and when I moved here because I made a choice that I was interested in what Poland had to offer. So I came here with an open mind. I was willing to explore whatever Poland had to offer. It's something of a quest that is still ongoing. I'm still discovering very new sides of Poland, especially traveling around Poland. There are still many places I haven't been to. All of Eastern Poland for me is quite unexplored so far. I've spent quite a lot of the time in the mountains and on the Polish coast, also in Western Poland, but Eastern Poland is still a bit of a mystery, so I feel I have to go there in the future. When it comes to culture, to music, television, this is another thing that I'm still not really well connected with, especially when it comes to movies. Many of the typical Polish classics, never watched them. I could probably name maybe 5 or 6 Polish actors. When it comes to movies, I definitely have more work to do.
Just lastly, is there anything when you think about Polish culture that you think they need to push this a little bit more because they could really export this to the rest of the world, and perhaps they're missing a trick with something?
Absolutely. When it comes to movies or TV series, there was one movie a couple of years ago, Z Ogniem I Mieczem, or with Fire and Sword translated to English. It was a movie about the great battles on the eastern steppes of what is today Ukraine in the 17th century. And this was that kind of historical drama that I typically like, and they had spent a lot of money for the time on that production. So you have these wonderful battle scenes, sword fighting, storming castles and whatnot. I feel that today Poland should try to make some more historical movies like that, and especially with the dramatic history the country has with the Second World War. I feel there should be a Polish version of Band of Brothers made, for example. My own grandfather fought in World War II in Western Europe, in France. Polish flyers were fighting over the skies of the UK during the Battle of Britain. Polish tanks would roll over the hills in the Netherlands, in Belgium, and even into Germany proper. So I feel that there is a story to be told, and if you spend some money on it and you write a good script, then I think a Polish Band of Brothers TV series is exactly what would be needed.
Lovely. Adam, thank you very much for joining us here at Poland Daily Culture.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm joined today by Sean. Sean, welcome to Poland Daily Culture.
Thank you.
So today we're going to have a little discussion about culture within Poland and maybe how that compares to your home country. So first of all, just tell us whereabouts are you from?
I'm from London, UK, but I'm Irish, so I'm London Irish, what I often refer to myself as. And I've been in Poland now for 13 years.
How does it sort of contrast when you think of culture? I know probably after being here for quite a while, you're now slightly sort of embedded and it's difficult to make that comparison. But what sort of first springs to mind when you contrast the two?
I think the Poland I moved to in 2006 is very different to what it is today. So I think in that respect, it's come a long, long way. I think when I first moved here, it did feel sort of a little bit behind, but in a very, very short space of time, it really caught up, and I couldn't imagine even moving back to London now. I couldn't imagine, whether it be the relative cost of living, what you get for that cost, and I think the quality of life here is something that we quite often, I get asked a lot actually by whether it be friends, clients, what is the quality of life here? Surely it must be worse than the UK, and I go to pains to try and explain to them that actually you'd be surprised that the quality of life I have here is better than I could have in the UK.
Right, yeah. I was wondering, maybe you could tell us how the Polish and British culture scenes kind of differ for you.
I think in terms of exporting the culture, obviously it has been more difficult in Poland because of the language barrier. That exporting of the music, the theatre, etc., is going to be confined to the Polish market to a certain extent. But I think when you look at film, for example, I think recent successes in various different awards categories for Polish films have really shown that Polish TV and film now is on a par with anywhere else in the world and is getting the recognition it truly deserves. Obviously, when you look at music, for example, I think sadly the UK has probably one of the most exported popular culture and music in the world, but it is because of language. Sharing a language with the US has made that possible.
So is there any part of Polish culture which is of particular interest for you?
I think my level of Polish has got to a very good standard, but it probably prohibits me from sort of really truly enjoying theatre, etc. However, I would say that Polish film and Polish music is something that I've in the last few years really taken an interest in. I think obviously with regards to film, the benefit of subtitles and the way it's been exported have really helped, and I think I've really gotten into and watch a lot of Polish films, to be honest. I quite often seek them out on Netflix or other platforms, but and equally Polish music. I'm a musician myself, so I quite often go to a lot of concerts here, a lot of gigs. I think some of the musicians that are coming out of the Polish cities now are on a par with anywhere in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today, we are visiting a manor house in Gałki to learn the history and the functionings of a manor house owned by Polish nobility. We will speak to the owner of this very manor house, Waldemar Gujski, about the history of Polish manor houses. The manor house of Szlachta, or the Polish nobility, served as a center for Polish culture throughout centuries. And during times of war and the partition of the nation, it also functioned as a bastion of freedom. It can be said that the Polish manor house is a center of Polish tradition and culture. And I was wondering if you can elaborate on how the traditions were kept here and if it's through the means of pastime or how is it conducted?
Polski dwór organizował życie Rzeczpospolitej.
Polish manor houses were the centers of life of the Kingdom of Poland. A Polish court influenced its local area with culture and traditions. It's where the noblemen, officials, farmers and workers all met for gatherings and huntings, which were a very popular way to spend free time.
Bardzo częstym momentem, w jaki sposób spędzano czas. Tu była centrum gościnności.
A manor was a symbol of hospitality as well. It was there where the Harvest Festival and Easter celebrations took place. This was where a local priest met with village folk.
Spotkali się ksiądz miejscowy z włościanami. Dwór był centrum życia Rzeczpospolitej. W związku z tym, że Rzeczpospolita, tak jak powiedziałem...
Let me stress that again. A court was a center of life of the Kingdom of Poland. There were lots and lots of them in Poland. Due to the fact that there were tens of thousands of them, both cultural and social life naturally resolved around them.
Trwało się wokół dworu, ale tak jak powiedziałem, nie było tu żadnej luki. Zresztą szlachcic traktował właśnie ten swój dwór.
A typical Polish nobleman treated his manor, his court and a local council as the center of his life, and he rarely even thought on a national scale unless there was a pospolite ruszenie or mass mobilization.
Kategoriami ogólnopaństwowymi. On głównie myślał kategoriami swojej ziemi i tutaj organizował właśnie...
A national call to arms against a threat or for conquest. He more often thought about his local land and community and organized life for himself and local farmers. Like I said, a court was a center of life.
Tutaj były organizowane kuligi, biesiady.
There were parties, huntings, and patriotic gatherings organized there. During the time of the partitions, Polish poems and prose were read and discussed in manners, which was forbidden, for example, by the Russians. Life in the manor houses helped cultivate our culture and enabled us to survive as a nation.
Która pozwoliła nam przetrwać.
So once the work is done, how do people here entertain themselves?
Można tu powiedzieć o dwóch okresach.
When talking about entertainment, we need to make a distinction between the time of the partitions and the times prior to them.
W ten sposób, że uczyła się sztuki wojennej, sztuki rycerskiej.
Before the partitions, young men spent their free time learning how to fight, how to be a knight in fact. They had fencing training and they learned how to wield a saber.
Do władania szablą, a przedtem zawsze były zawsze polowania, były zawsze spotkania.
There were huntings as well, of course, but there were also gatherings, conversations and parties. There was no concept of announcing one's arrival. When a guest visited a manor, he was treated with utmost attention.
Przyjeżdżał gość, to zawsze był traktowany w sposób z ogromną atencją i był zawsze zbawiony.
An arrival of a guest was viewed as a wonderful event, a break from the monotony of everyday work. During the partitions, on the other hand, there was the so-called organic work, the concept of the Polish nation working together as a single organism to free the country.
W sposób, że pojawiła się ta praca organiczna, praca u podstaw, kiedy wiadomo było, że że państwo jest, że społeczeństwo jest organizmem i trzeba te warstwy położone niżej podnosić ich poziom edukacji, poziom kultury właśnie.
This concept meant that the lower classes were to be elevated and helped by the higher classes in order to bring back independence.
Chłopskiej wychowaniem, leczeniem ich, lekarzy było bardzo niewielu.
Polish noblewomen educated poor youth and taught them manners and traditions. They also treated their illnesses since there weren't many doctors. The concept was to give as much as possible to the community.
Chwalebnych, bo pamiętajmy o tym, że bywali ziemianie, którzy grali w karty.
We could also mention this not so bright example of spending free time. We know that some landowners and noblemen played cards. There was Master Klicki, for example, or landlord Gałek, who won a Hungarian villages in cards, so he was very lucky. We need to remember that the aristocracy not always spent their time attending to noble matters, but usually they focused on organizing local life and spreading culture and knowledge.
Idealne i takie bardzo pozytywne, ale na ogół chodziło o to, żeby ten czas został zorganizowany i również...
A typical Polish nobleman always had something to do. He supervised the work at local farms, he even had his own economists.
Oglądał dobytku chłopów, miał swoich ekonomów, także nadzorował ich pracę. Pani zajmowała się służbą.
A lady of the manor supervised servants and was in charge of the food supplies, which was very important since certain products like sugar were rare and expensive and they couldn't be used just like that.
Cukier był niesłychanie drogi i tego nie wolno było dawać od tak sobie.
Next up, we will talk with the historian Krzysztof Jabłonka about how the values and traditions were created as well as preserved by the families living in Polish manor houses and how they would spend their free time. The Polish manor house is also like an institution of tradition, and I was wondering how that came to be and how the nobilities spend their pastime here.
Pamiętamy, że w średniowieczu
We need to remember that medieval knights were guided by a knight's code. Such code influenced their lives greatly.
rycerza, posiadając herb, był zobowiązany do posiadania honoru.
If someone had a coat of arms, he was obliged to have honor. One of the means of defending one's honor when medieval knights transformed to Renaissance nobility was to have a manor house. They played the role of cultural centers.
Myśl bardzo głęboko kulturalnych ośrodków. Szlachta odwiedzała się nawzajem.
Noblemen often visited each other, but they also organized gatherings, usually at important trade centers, to exchange information.
Ośrodkach i dzieliła się informacjami. Trzeba przyznać, że dwory szlacheckie
Manor houses consisted of well-educated people. Every nobleman had to know not only how to write and read, but also how to speak two languages, Polish and Latin.
po łacinie i po polsku. Po polsku przemawiał na sejmikach, czyli małych zjazdach.
At the Sejmiki, or lesser councils, the members of aristocracy used Polish, but at the Sejmwalny, or general council, they had to use Latin in order to be understood by the representatives of other nations of the Kingdom of Poland. You could say that the English language took over Latin's role today. Another important thing to mention is that the courts joined both the old, medieval traditions with the Renaissance folklore customs.
Do wsi jej podległych, chociażby pewne obyczaje.
They served as a bridge between the villages subordinate to them, bringing them important cultural innovations concerning, for example, hygiene, like running water, toilets, or washing clothes. This protected people from plagues and diseases.
W dworach zamieszkujący ludzie zajmowali się zarządzaniem, a więc nie pracowali fizycznie.
What's more, the noblemen living in manors didn't work physically, but rather supervised the works. Supervising requires a lot of knowledge, but not as much time, so they had quite a lot of time on their hands. Hence, after making the most important decisions, they prepared for huge balls, parties, gatherings or huntings.
Bali czy wreszcie wszelakich polowań. Oto gdy w jednym z dworów urządzano.
When a manor house organized a hunt for an aurochs, bear, fox or boar, for example, all nearby noblemen gathered for it.
I owe polowania trwały 3 dni. Jeżeli przyjeżdżano na wesele, chrzciny czy pogrzeby,
such hunting parties lasted for 3 days. For weddings, christenings or funerals, several dozen or even hundreds of guests were invited. Apart from funerals, there was a lot of dancing on these occasions. There were special music groups performing. What's interesting, in inns and pubs, people danced folk, oberek or kujawek, which are very lively dances, but in manors, the nobility was characteristic for its so-called refined dancing. The prime example of that was the Mazur dance. It was lively as well, but at the same time it was very dignified. It was danced in pairs, a lady and a gentleman. A walking dance also became very popular, and it later transformed into what we call from French a polonaise. It's a dance full of soul, strength and freedom.
Taniec pełen ducha, pełen siły i pełen swobody.
The tradition of Polish manor houses have seen a revival after the fall of communism. Hopefully, more and more of these amazing estates will be repaired and rebuilt back to its glorious days. That's it for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Travel. Once again, we are on the royal route where we trip the light fantastic, checking out the most important sites along perhaps the most fabulous boulevard in the entire country of Poland. Yes, we'll be coming to you from the humidor room in the beautiful Raffles Europejski Hotel, newly refurbished and opened in 2017. This is one of the premier hotels not only in Poland, but in Europe itself. After leaving the Raffles Europejski, we'll head to the Royal Route, where we'll continue our walk, which started in the cathedral in the Old Town and continues today up to Nowy Świat. That is not just today, but the next several days we'll be on the Royal Route, and we'll be showing you all the ins and outs and what's important to know. It's an exciting trip. Poland Daily Travel, the best travel reporting about Warsaw that you've ever seen. Stay tuned.
Hi everybody, it's Poland Daily Travel and we're here at the Raffles Europejski Hotel in beautiful downtown Warsaw, the place you'd like to come. It's 5 stars, count them, must be nice. Anyway, they've invited us to come in, have a look around. Stay with us, lots more coming from the Raffles Europejski Hotel in Warsaw. Arthur, how you feeling? Is it nice?
Very well.
This is a great room, isn't it?
Well, starting from the comfortable chairs that we are
very
sitting
comfortable,
on.
aren't they? Yeah.
Very comfortable and cozy area where guests of the hotel are having their cigar and a glass of cognac. We are having also amazing posters in here.
Yeah, there's some great stuff, aren't there? Yeah. It's in Polish, Sławne miłości, which means famous love.
Well, your Polish is,
Is that right?
as I said once upon a time, A+.
Ah, you're too kind.
So once upon a time in 17th
Lots of good stuff.
Centuries, for a reason of conversation, aristocracy, magnate families, the kings were using paintings and sculptures. So referring to particular sculpture, they could refer to particular piece of history and then talk about it, share their points of view. So that's the modern way of spending life. We are having these beautiful posters that are referring to particular branches of fashion, of theater, of movie industries, and this is how we can refer our nowadays thoughts and ideas to current things that are on the top.
Yeah, they would have had sculpture and paintings, and we've got posters from movies, and that's the point.
Exactly.
Behind here we have a poster from Spartacus, which was, of course, big Stanley Kubrick film in the late 1950s, with Kirk Douglas and Laurence Olivier. And then here's one, Billy Quamsa, which must be Billy Liar. Yeah, so they're very, Polish poster art is worth remarking upon because it's famous throughout the world.
Exactly, in Warsaw's Old Town, right next to the main market square, there is a big spot with the history of Polish posters, where you can also buy one for yourself.
Some cool posters
for your souvenir.
That's
the original size, and even some original elements you can get over there too. So it's not only Europejski Hotel in here that encourages us to develop in that piece of Polish history, but then Warsaw's Old Town is a place where you can experience it really.
Yeah, super, yeah. This is Poland Daily Travel, and we are at the Raffles Europejski Hotel. Stay tuned. We're back at the Raffles Hotel, the Raffles Europejski Hotel in downtown Warsaw. I'm here with my pal, Artur Górniewski. We're in the humidor room here at the Raffles, because people here have been very kind to let us come and share a bit of the elegance. I hope it rubs off on us. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I could get used to a room like this. It's fantastic. We've got the wood-paneled walls and the beautiful ceiling there, and over here in front of us, a huge wall of cigars. If you like cigars, this must be close to heaven, I would think.
Epic. So look, Will, these are current topics.
Sorry, I got all excited about the room.
And look, so many reasons for having a conversation.
Right.
Let's have a conversation about all these people, all these things, all these movies, and let's have a cigar, let's drink some cognac or whiskey in the meantime. And these are current, this is the moment of the times. This is how
this is the things we like,
exactly.
Films, and we got books here too. I mean, who reads books anymore? It's a shame, isn't it? Hardly anybody reads books anymore, right?
Well, this is how we get our history, and this is how we learned that once upon a time, people spending time like this in 18th, before this 17th centuries, they didn't have such posters.
No, they wouldn't know what a movie was. They would just sit around and smoke a cigar and talk, which is what we're doing. A cigar room, the idea of a cigar room is to have a conversation, sometimes a lost art. I mean, we're trying to have a conversation, between
yes,
the two
but
of
there
us
were also
in this atmosphere.
So what people of these days, what our forefathers, what that aristocracy was about when it comes to find an in common reason for conversation. So let's talk about
common topics.
Let's talk about some sculpture. Let's talk about some painting, and this is how we can refer to particular
which might
painters.
be on the walls here instead of posters, you know, in the old days, right?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in Europejski Raffles Hotel we are having this smooth continuation of the times. Once upon a time there was another reason for having a conversation. Today the reasons changed. So still we are updated in here. Still we have proper circumstances and reasons for conversations.
Well, that's right. And in the old days people would smoke cigars as I mean, it was just something you did. It wasn't extraordinary. Whereas now, smoking, people don't say it's not a good thing. So it gives you, makes you sick. So smoking is something that would have been ordinary pastime in the days gone by is now something that, well, it's a bit naughty. It's actually maybe even evil to a lot of people. So we're sitting in a cigar room, which my point is that once upon a time that was a normal thing to do. Now it's kind of different. Yeah.
Well, I just wonder how many...
And be able to smoke inside also, because there's a law against smoking inside, of course. Yeah.
Well, of course, this hotel and such kind of places in Warsaw and all around the world are just to give proper circumstances for amazing guests and visitors who are coming in here from all around the world. So let's say, why not? Why not giving them such very cozy opportunity?
Was it a five-star thing to smoke cigars? Is that the sort of idea? People like the magazine Cigar Aficionado and things like that. Is the idea that leather chairs and cigar smoke go together, and with a nice glass of cognac? We see back here, lots of cognac, right? Yeah.
Well, of course,
is it a classy thing to do? Is that the idea?
The good thing about class is that it raises within the time, it changes within the time, but there are some ways of spending time that don't change within the time.
Right.
And the proper...
Okay. That's the point.
The point
timeless
is that,
elegance, we can say.
The point is that gentlemen were always trying to find the proper circumstances to talk about politics, about maybe religion, maybe women, about conquering another lands, or maybe the Wild West. Then once upon a time there were bath houses, so to have such conversations. Very popular in Ottoman or Roman Empire. One of Polish kings, Poniatowski, in his palace had such baths too. That's why the name of his residence is Łazienki, which means baths.
Łazienki Park, for
exactly.
example. And there are a lot of palaces there as well, which would have been places to relax.
Hunting together, that was also a way of spending time.
Yeah, but these male things, you're not supposed to do them anymore. You're not supposed to smoke cigars, you're not supposed to drink brandy, you're not supposed to go hunting. All of these are, these masculine pursuits over the ages are now frowned upon by a lot of people, but not by us. Hey, we're here, we're enjoying ourselves in the beautiful Raffles Hotel. You want to go walk around a little bit?
Let's do it.
Let's go walk around and look. It's a beautiful hotel. Let's go see some of it right now. Poland Daily Travel. Stick with us. More from the Raffles Europejski Hotel. Should we go walk?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.